A very warm welcome to the Social Show. Well, maybe I shouldn't say warm because it's just ridiculously hot. But Joburg had a few splashes last night, so I'm feeling a little bit cool. I hope you're having a great Tuesday. It's exactly 9:32 to 10 o'clock, and I'll be with you for 30 minutes from 9:30 to exactly 10 o'clock. As it says, my name is Rachel, and I'll be bringing you the very best in CSI, CSR, as well as CSV news. And we have got an interesting debate, one which I've been avoiding, to be honest. A lot of people have been asking me to talk about it. But I just think I need to get the right people in studio, perhaps, to speak about it. But more than that, I am actually going to be releasing a video with some important people to talk about the concept of race in advertising. That's what we're going to be looking at today. If you want to get involved in any of the conversation, give me your opinion, give me an idea, give me an effective resolution to what we can do based on the topic of the show, you can definitely send me a query on @brandliveradio.co.za online. This is also on Twitter, or you can go to social1-tv on our Twitter page and just send me a young message, or you can just send me an email right now. I'm standing right in front of my email, so you can definitely send me at press@social-tv.co.za, giving you the very best CSI, CSR, and CSV stories. And of course, if you don't know what that is, I want to say you're listening to the wrong show, but you're not. So I'm going to give you a bit of an idea. It's corporate social investment, corporate social responsibility, as well as creating shared value, doing good by others. How are corporates doing good by us and contributing to our NDP goals, contributing to our SDG goals, contributing to Vision 2030? What are you doing as well as an individual, sitting there in your office space, doing your work? What else could you be doing for humanity? What else could you be doing for your country? Of course, if you have any ideas or you don't know what you could be doing, don't be afraid to go to www.social-tv.co.za, and you will find the very latest CSI and CSR as well as shared value initiatives that you can be a part of. You can volunteer your time, your money, or your company's resources to help someone in need. Of course, we can't start off the day without the news. Australia is calling on the world's top scientific minds to help save the Great Barrier Reef, offering hundreds and thousands of dollars to fund research into protecting the world's largest living structure. The UNESCO World Heritage listed reef is reeling from insignificant coral bleaching due to warming sea temperatures linked to climate change. The 2,300-kilometer site is also under pressure from farming runoff, development and predatory crown of thorns starfish, with experts warning it could be suffering irreparable damage. On Tuesday, the Australian government announced that they will be giving 2.0 million funding, which is going to be available to people with bright ideas on how to save the reef. In other news, Brazil's Rio de Janeiro state on Wednesday brought in a law cracking down on ads deemed to be sexist or threatening violators with hefty fines. This legislation is in force after being published in the official state government gazette and mirrors a national law currently being studied by a congressional commission. The change poses a challenge to many brands in Brazil that often use images of skimpily dressed women and suggestive situations to sell everything from beer to cars to mobile subscriptions. And lastly, in our news, Sustain Power, together with Unique Hydro, recently delivered a locally manufactured biogas, which will be used at the electrical power generator in Ibert, which is a South African biogas company. The containerized combined heat and power unit, CHP, produces electricity and heat in a waste-to-energy process, which, by recovering 90% of the energy in gaseous fuel, is very efficient. Biogas is a methane-rich gas which is produced during the breakdown of the organic matter. For example, agricultural waste, plant material, food waste, etc., in an anaerobic digestion process, and is therefore considered a renewable energy source. And that concludes our news today.
Have you ever thought about the power of social media? Social media has the power to make your business grow. Yeah. Why don't you let us manage your social media? Because our business is to see your business grow. Visit us at www.bstownmedia.co.za.
Imagine that you have $1.25. In the United States, you can have 5 bags of deep cheese and a pretzel. In London, you can have an instant soup. In India, you can have 2 steamed rice cakes. In Ghana, you can have a small box of chicken and rice. While you're imagining the tasty smell of that chicken and rice, 1.3 billion people around the world only have $1.25 to survive per day. They don't have a choice, but you do.
Insensitivity and the ad campaigns.
You mean the one right now?
Yes.
And the other one that came out.
So I know there is one right now, and yeah, I'm not going to say it. You said it, but one thing we have to remember, and I might get skewered for this, is those choices are not necessarily the CEO of H&M. It could be 8 people on a set, or one buyer buying something and giving it to a person on set, and those couple of people ruin a company's reputation. It's kind of like a pizza company, and some fool is gonna put a mouse on top of pizza that's in the one shop out of thousands upon thousands of shops that are around the world, and now the whole company is coming down because of this one person. So we have to remember that and try to get to the root of who the hell put that sweatshirt on that beautiful black baby. Who put it on him? Not who made it, who put it on him. That's the person to really focus on. And then who printed that shit, right? Not necessarily CEO, but who are these people that did that? And I would love for us to try to get deeper into the who, not the what.
Thank you so much.
So that was Tyra Banks speaking a little bit about the H&M scandal. Now, if you've been living under a rock, let me give you the lowdown of what has been happening. Twitter has been a mess since Monday, following a racial controversy about a recently launched clothing line for children by retailer H&M. Now, the advert appeared on the retail company's United Kingdom website, and it sort of shows an H&M boys, it's a boys' clothing catalog. It shows a black boy modeling a sweater that refers to him as a monkey. On the adjacent page of the catalog is a white boy who's shown wearing one that says sort of survival expert, which caused, I don't even know what it is. It's like an uproar. It is like intense emotion, intense anger. Rightfully, in my opinion, with some users labeling it as racist, offensive, and distasteful. The UK publication, The Evening Standard, said H&M had apologized for the ad and removed it from the website. And just before I got back onto the show, I played a little bit of a clip of Tyra Banks speaking a little bit about who's to blame. And that's been ringing in my head for quite a while, because I've been thinking about, yes, of course, we can look at H&M and say they're racist. They don't have an idea as to, they really weren't thoughtful in that advert. And really, it's just really disgusting. It's not cool. But I think there's something to be said about the responsibility that the corporates give to their teams and the people that they hire. I started thinking about the hiring process, number one. I started thinking about how much rigorous sort of interviewing do creatives get when they get into a space, like especially in advertising? Is there an ethical part of the interview? Because you could find someone who's amazing with graphics. You could find someone who can knit and sew and make dresses and make beautiful clothes. But do we actually look beyond the skill set and we say, yes, you've got the skill set, but what else what kind of what do you stand for? What do you stand in? What do you believe in? And perhaps that's maybe where the question for me lies, is what is the hiring process of most of these retail brands? This is not the first time an agency has said something degrading around race. Not the first time we've seen, I'm going to talk a little bit later on the show about a few of the ads that have gotten some really bad backlash because of their serious, racial slants and slander, really. And just things not being thought out really well, especially looking at the history of Black people and the history of race and how it has been used in advertising in the past. So it's very important that when we look at the story, when we look at H&M, we're not just looking at them as one conglomerate which made one mistake, because at the end of the day, people forget. Next thing you know, we're all going to be at H&M. Yeah, people are boycotting now. You want those jeans, you're going to go to H&M later on in like 2 or 3 months. But what we need to actually look at is the ground root of what that means. Who are these people who make these decisions? How are we getting the creative force within especially in advertising? What are the rigorous questions are we asking them? What is the interviewing process? Is there an ethics committee that evaluates whether or not you've had or are racist, or you are sexist, or you are, homophobic? What are those? Should there be any sort of questions or questioning that goes around that? And I think it's important that we start asking those questions as to how do people get hired and how do people form part of these big teams, regardless of their talent, regardless of the fact that somebody knitted it, somebody made it, somebody designed it. Who are the people who are styling? Who are the people that you have around you as a big corporate, as a and getting those advertising agents involved? How are you evaluating what their trueness is? And I think rightfully Tyra hit a little bit on the mark when she said it's obviously not all of H&M who thinks like that. I would assume, and I would actually pray, but there's a few people, bad apples in there that are managing to get by, managing to make these kind of decisions. And that's what the issue is. The issue is, how are people still able to manage this, and how can it then become something that is overlooked in such a way? And I mean, it's very disgusting. Just think about it. Everybody's been talking about this H&M controversial ad. And I would really like to ask if you have any question, if you have any insight on who do you think is to blame? Because it's one thing to say, yes, it's racial, yes, we'll boycott H&M, but what are we saying about the root of the problem, and how are we going to fix it going forward? Because this is not the first time we've seen a huge company, corporate, coming on and really going really wrong on race and not understanding how something like Coolest Monkey in the Jungle on a black boy is just disgusting, to say the least. What are we doing? What can we do? Also, another question that I'd like to ask, especially if you're a corporate sitting down and listening to the show, is how many of your projects which are within CSI tackle racism, if any? I know that we look at health, we look at welfare, we look at education, we look at training, we look at a lot of other different, which are as important, health, sanitation, all these really amazing initiatives that are coming out of different corporates. But how many of us are actually looking at it from a racial point of view? Are we looking at racism as a potential project to start off, a potential initiative to kick off, to say we will not tolerate racism, and this is the initiatives that we're going to do, or we're going to put in place to make sure that nobody is racially discriminated against, and this is the money we're going to be putting towards this specific foundation. In fact, today I'm going to be speaking to the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, and they have been quite relentless in speaking out against the racist ad, against racism in general. They work very closely with Anti-Racism Week, and I'll be talking to them during the day today at 12 o'clock, and we'll be discussing a little bit more on what they think should have been done. There's been a lot of backlash from the EFF to Twitter to every single thing. Everyone's been reacting. But how do we react responsibly? And if you have any idea, please don't forget to send me a message on @BrandLiveRadio on Twitter. I'm just going to give you a few adverts that have kind of shot themselves in the foot regarding race. And the most recent one that I can remember beyond H&M is Dove. I know a few months ago we were speaking a little bit about the skincare brand that came under fire. I think it was about October last year for an advert that they showed sort of a black woman taking off a t-shirt to reveal a lighter or clearer skin underneath. But ironically, as explained below, as they explained in their work, the hoax was that they took a lot of flack as it looked a bit dodgy. First of all, I think they made the mistake of putting a composite ad together using two models of color and a white model in front of a billboard bearing huge close-up and before-after skin photos, one dry and one cracked. And I understand that they were actually talking about skin, but it wasn't smart enough for us to not see if they were trying to be kind of racial about it, because the darker skin model was positioned under the before and the whiter skin models were put under the after. It's not funny. It's actually quite disgusting. And I'm actually still trying to figure out again. And this is why my question always resonates to how do we evaluate the ethics and the ethical behavior of the people that we hire? How do we evaluate that? Also, does that evaluation is it impacted by the actual ethos of the corporate? So now if the corporate has a long trajectory or a history of being racist, how does that translate or impact on the employee? Also, if the employee also has their own racist, affiliation, sexist, whatever the case may be, how does it impact the corporate, and how are those two sort of ethical stances put together and evaluated so that these kinds of things do not happen? I'm pretty sure, maybe I'm 100% sure there was somebody there who hadn't a higher rank, who didn't have a higher rank, who didn't have enough to say an intern, somebody on the sideline, somebody who, did the airbrushing, whatever the case may be, who looked at those adverts and said, no, man, this is not right, but did not have the voice nor the capacity to speak up because of the rankings, because of the where they are in terms of where they're employed and how they're employed. So it's very important that we look at the ethos of the entire corporate, and also understanding that racism, as much as it seems like this thing that people don't want to talk about, or this it doesn't exist, or we must forget about it, it is very crucial because it comes out in spaces like this. It comes out and all we're getting back are apologies, and I don't think that's good enough. But Twitter definitely did pile on Dove, having the racist ad, and a lot of people spoke out about it. And I think also what we need to also look at is examining the role of social media at giving people voices and giving people backlash, and also showing intolerance for bad behavior. And I think that's such an important thing that's coming out of this 21st century, is the fact that we're getting more people speaking out, and more ads being turned down, and more people being challenged, people in high positions being challenged. And this is something that has been especially true for the Trump administration, which has been seeing a lot of backlash on Twitter, on Facebook, on all our social medias. People are voicing out their opinion, and that opinion has led to a number of policy changes, a number of ads been taken down, and that's something that was unheard of back in the past. So I think it's very important that we look at that. I know that also, same year, Pepsi. I don't know if you guys remember the Pepsi ad disaster, which appropriated imagery from the Black Lives Matter protest. And almost everyone agreed that the idea of Kendall Jenner, who is a Kardashian, as a Pepsi-bearing messiah, trivialized the widespread campaign against the killing of black people by US police. I definitely remember that one, and it shook me up the wrong way. And again, I love the fact that there was a good pushback, good power coming from people, good responses, and it was pulled down. It was pulled down, and people have to apologize. But is apologizing enough? Is apologizing enough? And those are questions I'm going to be asking the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. I'm going to be speaking to the executive director today, later on in the show. The video will be up on www.social-tv.co.za by the end of the week, so you can find out what it is that they're doing. Nivea was also last year accused of racism when they flattered an ad showing a woman instantly turning lighter when applying the lotion, while claiming that it made her feel younger. Not okay, Nivea. They also came under fire for a campaign that had the slogan, "White is purity," which has to be said takes a multicultural tone, deafness to a whole new level. Seriously. And I just want to talk about the last one, which is quite close to the kind of work that we do, which was the aid organization Feed a Child, which had an advert that showed a rich white woman feeding a black child scrapes under the table as if he were a puppy. And the tagline read, I'll never forget this, "The average domestic dog eats better than millions of children." Although the intent of the charity was fundraising drive was to sort of guilt trip wealthy suburbanites, many of whom sort of will spend more on their pets than they give to charity. I've had this conversation with a lot of my friends. Man. But anyway, it was a noble idea. Just the organization quickly learned that comparing black children to animals is just outright unforgivable. Of course, there's so many more ads that we can speak about. But for me, the question that rings a bell, the question that I want you guys to answer is, what is the actual judging process when you are hiring a team, hiring an ad agency, hiring a number of people to come around and solidify or come up with your brand, your branding in any way as a corporate? What kind of ethos what kind of questions do you ask? Do you evaluate? To evaluate whether or not you're working with a racist agency, you're working with a racist stylist, you're working with people that aren't human, really. I mean, for you to have even approved half of these adverts, you have to have no regard of history, no regard of racism, and no regard of just being downright insensitive. So if you have any questions, any answers to this question that I have that's been ringing in my head, please don't be afraid to go to @BrandLive Radio. @BrandLive Radio on Twitter. It's a crazy Tuesday. We're going to take a short break and we'll be back after this with things to remember.
What is individual social responsibility? Social responsibility is about me, you, and us. It is about our action, how we affect people, the community, and the environment around us. What if we all accepted responsibility for the challenges that our communities face? What if we challenged ourselves to create positive impact with every action we take? Just like businesses focus on corporate social responsibility, JCI members are challenged to focus on individual social responsibility. We all have rights as citizens, but we also have responsibilities. The JCI Active Citizen Framework is a social plan that serves as a roadmap to sustainable development. That is what social responsibility is about. It is about me, you, and all of us taking responsibility for the future of our world, starting from our local community.
Well, you're back on the social show only on BrandLive Radio, and of course, we're ending off the show with things to remember. Let's take a little bit of a listen to this clip and we'll be back after it.
Our differences are what set us apart as humans, but is the cause of hatred amongst us. There are white people, black people, girls, boys, gay people, straight people, fat people, skinny people, rich people, poor people, people with different beliefs. But underneath, we are all the same. No matter who you are, your blood is red just like mine. So why should any of us be treated differently? We are world change.
That is World Change, talking a little bit about unity against race discrimination. And I think it's very important that we highlight the fact that the first real issue is the fact that we have so many titles that prohibit us from specific access to almost everything in the world. And I think the most important thing we need to take away from this H&M situation, the Dove situation, Nivea situation, this advertising situation is that a lot of the times, because of our labels and because of the things that are put upon us by society, we are unable to look at the next person as just a human being. We give them labels, we give them these identities that are not true. And I really do hope that that little boy, when he grows up, he will understand that, you know, he was just a con in a bigger game, which wanted him to feel, wanted, to appropriate something that does not exist. Race does not exist, in my opinion. And if you have any contribution on this debate, on this idea, on what has been happening in the advertising space, please don't be afraid to let me know, especially if you're in a corporate and you are in an agency. It'd be great to hear from you, to find out what are the processes, what are the things that you need to go through before something such as this can go to print, something such as this can go on a website, something such as this can be on TV. In 2018, what are the processes? And perhaps we can then see where it all went wrong. And that concludes our show for this Tuesday. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back again, same time, same place, only on The Social Show from 9:30 to 10. All day, every day, all week, every week, rather. Okay, we'll be back again tomorrow. Love and light.
You're listening to brandlive.co.za.